This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new episode, a brand new week, but a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon, and I'm about to leave Athens actually. So I'm about to go head home from Greece back to Australia. It's been a lovely trip. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. 2 weeks is probably enough for me at this stage. I'm raring to get back into some projects and businesses back home. That's for sure, and see my little pooch, Mr. Petey. If you haven't seen Petey, then you haven't got me on Instagram. That's for sure. Otherwise, my experience here in Athens has been extremely different to the islands. I'm not sure which of you guys have been to Greece or even live in Greece. I have to check my downloads there, but definitely the Kefalonia was absolutely stunning. The people were amazing there as well, although it was definitely on island time. But in Athens, I think we've stayed in a relatively nice hotel, just one of the core ones. However, it's in an area where it's just dodgy. Athens is so different to the islands that we saw. That's for sure. But either way, today I've been reading on this trip. I've been reading a book by Seth Godin. He wrote a book called Purple Cow, and a few other books as well. But this is called This Is Marketing, and his message is really fantastic. I've mentioned it in one of the other podcasts. But in short, like, he's not just talking about how to market for a business and just marketing for the sake of increasing sales. That's really not his message. And it's so interesting. I've had so many so-called business coaches in the past that have really just they've been on the objective side of things, and if you're familiar with the Enneagram, they're really leaning into like average levels of the type 3, hey, and the achiever, that is, and they've got this shiny out coat with this concern that they will be seen to be shallow or empty on the inside, so they keep people at arm's length while trying to be a little bit deceptive and appear to be bigger and better than they are. And I mean, this is a type 3, average type 3, lower average type 3 quality, which is quite interesting. Yet, knowing what I know now, I see that in a lot of the coaches that I've worked with, so-called business coaches. Seth's stuff I find is very different. He's definitely not an average type 3, that's for sure. But one of the messages in there which I found interesting, he said, "Don't personalize your work, make it personal." Now, I'm not in a position where I can ask him what he really means by that. I can only sort of at this stage take in what I take from that. And it's not about, for me, it's not about going, don't. Okay, let me reframe that. It's saying don't personalize your work, as in this is Dave Nixon and this is that. So I'm working with you one-on-one, and this is I'm coming from my angle. What's important is to really put myself in your shoes and really try and find out who you are, how you think, what you do, and make it personal for you, not personal for me necessarily. Now, it doesn't mean I completely ignore myself. Clearly, if you listen to my podcast and done work with me and follow me, you'll know that. But what it really means is that I'm making a distinct effort to be able to find out what experience are you having. I'm really interested in that. I'm intrigued by that. And if you've done work with me, you'll see that I'm heavily like that. I talk about having, when I coach, I have an empty mug in my chest, in my torso, and until I can really engage and ask questions and find out like tangible things that you're explaining to put in my mug so I can understand you as best I can. That's really the approach that I take with coaching, but it really is about making it personal for the other person, and that's actually servicing. Hey, that's in service of the other person as opposed to being in service of yourself. And so one of the beautiful messages here, and I think StrongFit do this well, and I know a couple of other industries do it well, in some areas, but let's talk about, for example, the gym industry, the fitness industry, personal training, all that sort of stuff. Like, don't deal with the person's goals or don't deal with the person's body. You deal with the whole human, And this is the opportunity to take an integral approach. It's what I talk about in my book, but it's also taking this integral approach of looking at the individual subjective, so their thoughts, their emotions, their feelings, all of their unconscious, all that sort of stuff, the subjective. Taking in the intersubjective, so this is also looking at the person's support groups. They're looking at their family values, looking at their friends' values, all of those sort of collective subjectives or intersubjective dynamics. You then also take in the individual objective, so the actual physical body, the health of the physical body, the behaviors of that individual, all of the things that are actually measurable of the objective individual. And then the interobjective, so the maybe the access to the equipment that they have, the food that they have access to or they choose to have access to, what's their work environment like, not just the culture but the actual environment, and so forth. And so this is really not just looking at the person's goals and giving them a program based on their goals. This is actually dealing with the individual. And I saw a friend recently put up, and I think they've just finished their study in physiotherapy or exercise physiology from memory, and what they were talking about was not dealing with the injury. You deal with the person, and this is so fucking crucial. You don't work from the injury, you work from the person. The first place that I ever heard this, I'm not sure if you're aware of the wellness guys. I think they've just kind of finished up actually. They're one of the top fitness and health podcasts in Australia, excuse me, for many years. And I actually had a podcast on their couch. I was their second interviewed person 8 years ago, funnily enough. You could probably still find that podcast. It'd be quite interesting to listen to. The wellness guys did a summit. They did a number of summits, but their first summit up in Queensland I went to, and there was a dentist that spoke there, and he was talking about, we don't deal with the tooth, we deal with the person connected to the tooth. And that was the first I ever heard of that style of approach and thinking. And so this is the really powerful thing, how we can make it personal. We can make it about that person when we take in the whole person and the integrated viewpoint of that individual, as opposed to just the person's goals, just the injury, just the financial situation, just what the person's saying on surface level face value. And so our ability to do this allows us to connect back to being human and being in service of another human. And this is such a powerful, beautiful space to be, because it's not just putting my little signature at the end. I'm actually engaging as a person to another person, not just as a robotic, script to a couple of dot points and a couple of personality traits. And so this is one of the things when I've talked to people around coaching, and my friend recently just tagged me in a post because someone said, how can they learn to better connect with their clients from an athlete standpoint? It's it's not just about looking at the Enneagram and putting people in typologies. It's looking at all of the frameworks, all of the meta programs, the thinking patterns, all of the levels of consciousness and awareness, looking at the Enneagram typologies, but the dynamic of all the Enneagram typologies and how they move and all that sort of stuff. But the key thing about all of it, the key thing about all of that is not fucking assuming, not just putting people in a box, but calibrating. Genuinely really asking, not just go, you said this, which means X. It's actually going, you said this, how are you using that? Can you explain to me what that means for you? I know what it means for me. What does it mean for you? And this is how we can actually not just personalize it. So you said this, I'm going to make sense of it, but personalize it and make it personal in a way of going, you said this, how are you using that? Now it's about them, not about you as the physio, the PT, the bank teller, whatever it may be. Anyway, team, that's me done for today. I thought I'd share that with you. I really enjoyed that part of the book and pulling it apart, and I think it's a really important conversation as well. But if you found this podcast beneficial and you know someone else that would also find this podcast beneficial, not just this episode, but maybe other episodes, it would mean the world to me if you'd pass it on to them. If you share it on Instagram, make sure you tag me at DDNix. I'd love to reshare it. Also, I had some IG TV, Instagram TV. I've had a bit of a break after it was a hectic holiday in the first week anyway. So that's going to come back up on later this week once I get back into Australia. So I'd love for you to share that and tag some people that you know would benefit from those as well. Otherwise, crew, that's me done for today. If you haven't already, jump on Facebook, search Mood Prep Online, continue the conversation there. Until tomorrow, peace and pizza, kick today in the dick, and slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
To be everything at once, be unblinded, be unlearned.